Namato Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and to my teachers. Hello, good evening. So today is Tuesday, the 7th of July 2020. This is Ajahn Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. As usual, I'm here every night to speak on different topics and sharing some of the experiences with you all. And thank you everyone for listening every night. And thank you Manish, Suresh, Margaret and everyone. So far it's been 3 days that I've been focusing on the teachings of the Buddha based on the Asala Puja, the first discourse of the Buddha's teachings. And so far I have tried to lay down the background of what it is and what is the knowledge and how to understand the Four Noble Truth. Hi Colin, hi Margaret, hi Suresh. I hope you're all having a wonderful time. So and today I thought that Mangesh, hi Mangesh. So today I thought that so far, all the information that I have laid down a couple of nights will give you sufficient understanding to understand the Four Noble Truth and what it is. And yesterday I mentioned about, in order to understand the Four Noble Truth, the concept of the Four Noble Truth, we have to understand the past, previous knowledge or datas. And understanding that previous datas will help us to understand the present and the future. On the night when the Buddha was enlightened, first he understood the previous lives and then what is going to be in the future. It's called Chittupada Jnana. And then after understanding these, the previous cause and effects and what makes today all the new lives to arise, and the Buddha understood that all this arising and vanishing basically on the basis of something has done something in the past. And once we able to eliminate that cause and basically there won't be any future, there's a complete freedom, complete happiness. So that's why it's called Asavakkhaya Jnana, so the elimination of the tents. And after the elimination of the tents, Buddha summarized the teachings of the Buddha himself, that there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, and this suffering can be ended, and there is a path to end the suffering. And that's why the first three noble truths, the suffering, the problems and the cause of problem and the end of the problem, is there whether Buddha arise or not. All what he did is to discover and present ways to find it. That's why the fourth noble truth is known as the Magga, or the path, the fundamental teachings of the Buddha. And that's how we understood the Four Noble Truth. And in Four Noble Truth, now I will focus on the dukkha, or the first noble truth. Dukkha, which is famously translated as suffering, although it is not a sufficient translation for the word dukkha, and there are other various translations known as dissatisfaction, dissatisfaction or disappointment, so and so. But basically the suffering or the dukkha here, Buddha said that birth is dukkha, getting old is dukkha, getting sick is dukkha, having to die is dukkha, and associating with someone who we dislike is dukkha, disassociation or separation from loved one is dukkha, the suffering, and not having what we wish is dukkha. In a short form, Buddha simply said that the attachment to this 5 aggregate is the dukkha, the suffering. And this dukkha, again, according to the Buddha, he divided this dukkha into 3 different categories. And I have said in previous talks that the concept of the Buddha, although Buddha spoke widely, Buddhism is not a nihilism, a nihilistic view. He simply was the realistic, presenting the reality in front of us. It's like the doctors are presenting us having seen the symptoms of different symptoms that we have, and telling that we have got this disease or that disease, and this disease or that disease can be ended or can be cured. And that's how some people even said that Buddha is the great physician or the doctor. It's called a Vaisajya Guru, the master of the medicine or master of the cure. So that's why Buddha was not the pessimistic by presenting what is wrong, but he was not stopped there after presenting this is going wrong, and all what we need to do is to find the solution and cure it. So that's why dukkha, according to Buddha's philosophy, can be divided into 3 categories. And the first is known as the dukkha dukkha, which means the ordinary suffering, and we all have to go through. Once we are born, it's obviously subject to decay. We cannot deny. And further on, once we got old, or somehow we will get some form of a illness and a sickness, which is ordinary too. Let's say a lot of snow or a lot of very cold, and if we are not protected due to the environment, we got sick, right? And sometimes we work so hard, and that also makes us sick too. And sometimes, despite of looking after very well sometimes despite of looking after very well, we got sick. I remember there are one member who was life coaching in a health diet, and he was very conscious about healthy eating, and he looks very fit, and he was very routinely doing all these physical exercises, and very conscious about what he's eating each day, every day. And yet somehow someday he got some stomach problem and went on for the checkup and realized that he had a cancer, and within a few months he had to die. So that's why it's not the matter that how much we look after and we will not die or we will not sick. This is due to the environment or due to the food that we consume, and there is always a possibility that we get sick, and this is also very ordinary. No one is escaping from it. We all have to go through. Buddha called it we are nature to get sick. We have not gone beyond. So payadi dhammom hi payading anatitoti. That is what the Buddha said. So that's why this is again ordinary to all of us. Right? And again, the suffering that we have to go through is the death. Again, we cannot deny, whether we like it or not. It is there, at all the time, and we do not know when and how, in which situation we're going to die, we're going to end our life. Like I have seen on the social media the compilation of different people died in different ways. Someone is just riding a bicycle and just fall down and then gone. And there was someone who is just talking on a phone and just like having an electric shock and died. Someone is just talking and announcing or on a stage as MC, and they just fall down and got died. And there was another, that one at the office sitting on a table and just somehow got a heart attack and died too. So we do not know when and how. It's always there. That's why Buddha called it like someone. It's like we are in an avatar. At any time, this Lord of Death can take our life away. That's why this is also suffering too. And this dukkha, or the ordinary suffering, is common to all, and we cannot overcome it at all. And this is very common. And whether we like it or not, we all have to go through with it. Like getting sick, getting old, and having to die. But especially getting old is not pleasant to know. And it's not that what everyone would like to have, particularly ladies, or the ladies that very well, how to put it in a words now. It's not like the racist, but females are more onto like pretending not to be getting old. That's why there are so many beauty shops making nails and making so many what is called makeups, and even the plastic surgeries to make yourself still young. And whenever someone sees in the gray hair in their heads, and again, I'm getting old, like that. In fact, I was having one here couple of days before the shaving, and now the sign of old has appeared. Even in digesting system will just go on, right? So this old age, normally we do not want to accept. We want to be still young and fit and energetic, like that. But once we're born, there is a change that we have to accept, right? It's always there, that ordinary dukkha, ordinary suffering, is always there, all right? And this is the undeniable fact. It's not that something is a fiction, right? And a second concept of the dukkha is known as the viparinama dukkha, which means the dukkha due to the changing nature. And here, changing nature mostly relation to the feelings. That's a feelings, changing feelings. Now here, what we are like, and it's changing in our feelings or emotions. Like we want to be happy at all the time, but we won't be able to be happy at all the time, right? We don't like to be in a suffering or having a trouble all the time. But again, that's also not the permanent, right? So emotions. That's again. I think this is, I have been saying a lot, that emotion is not something that is there. Emotion is our reaction to the feelings that comes to contact with us, whether it is having seen something by our eyes, or having heard something by our ears, or having smelled something from our nose, or having eaten something, or come to contact with our body. And these are the feelings that arises. as soon as these come, the internal organs, or so-called eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, comes to contact with the external identities or external objects, like the visible object, the audible sound, and the taste and smell and the sense of the softness and cool and hard. These things generates the feelings, and on top of that feelings, we define that this is what I don't like and this is what I like, and that's how our feeling changes. Okay, and that's how that feeling changes. When this feeling change, then that causes the suffering. Like, say, we want to be happy at all the time. Or we want to be, we want to see sunshine at all the time in Aberdeen. Whereas suppose in hot countries like in Thailand, they don't want to have hot at all the time. They wish to have a snow. So that's a change. Due to the change, the causes of suffering. Okay. So, and that is why first, in a practice of a meditation, what we have to develop is to understand that change in order to get compromise, understanding, and ability to let it be, finding the ways to be balanced in this situation. And the third dukkha, or the problem that Buddha talk, is about it's called sankhara dukkha, which is the problem or the suffering caused by conditioned. And this is one of the difficult one to understand. And this condition is basically, the Buddha was saying that in order to understand this dukkha properly, we have to understand that everything conditioned arises, and everything is aroused due to the condition, and there is no single identity or single substance that arises without any condition, right? So everything arises due to the condition, or based on something else, or something else. There is something else is supporting to one to grow, and as a result of that, even our own self, this mind and this whole mass of body, or so-called I am, again Buddha defined it as the combination of mind and a body, or also known as the 5 aggregates. Right, 5 aggregates, and in this 5 aggregates, basically the 5 focuses, the 5 things there. And the first one is called the matter, or the rupa. Rupa basically means the matter or the physicality. The whole physical body is known as the rupa, and this rupa in fact doesn't feel. This rupa in fact doesn't belong to us at all. It's like just a home that we have borrowed. It's like the rented home. We are living in this body, and once all the condition collapse, then we have to leave this home one way or another, whether we like it or not. So this matter, that's why, doesn't belongs to us, and if it belongs to us, we would be able to order this body not to get old, and we would be able to order this ears not to get old, or kind of hearing trouble, or even eyes that do not get old, or that do not get problem. So like that. So that's why this body in fact is not belongs to us. This is just one part of the life that we have, and we are renting it. We are basically living with this and even this body is conditioned, right? This body is also conditioned by the environment, by the food that we eat, and the way we think. So the way we think is the last one, which is also called jivatrinsya, which means the life forcing the energy. Okay, but this body, if it feels, once the consciousness leaves the body, this body should be able to feel it. So that's why this body doesn't feel, but we live in it, right? It's like a rented room, a rented house that we are living in. The very moment when the owner comes and say you have to leave, then we have to leave it, the rented house. So that's the first aggregate. And the second aggregate, from second to the 5 aggregates, known as the nama, or the mind section. So that's why mind, according to Buddhism, is not the substance or a brain or a heart. It's a combination of so many other things. The second of the 5 aggregates, but the first in the mind section, is called the feeling, or the Vedana. And here feeling can be both pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, or neutral feelings. So these are the feelings that categorize in here. And these feelings arises whenever this body is functioning, and then through this body parts, like the so-called 5 senses, the eye, nose, ear, tongue, and a body, comes to contact with outer object. In combination of these two, let's say eye comes to contact with the visible object, it sparks, it brings the friction, and that friction is known as the feeling. And that is the moment the consciousness arises, and then recognizing that feeling. And this recognition at that time, again, is not defined as good or bad or pleasant or unpleasant, but that's simply a friction or the feeling, right? Energy that has arisen. And that energy, on the basis of our memories and experiences, we identify that this is pleasant and this is unpleasant. So that's why it's known as perception or the memory, sanya, in the Pali word called sanya, but it is perception or a memory. So on the basis of our memories, we recognize things and we recognize objects that has been arisen, right? Once it's that's the perception is the second part of this mind section. Once we have recognized it, and once we have identified that, what happens is we think of what is used for, right, and what is going to be, and that's known as the formation. So karma formation, or the proliferation, or creating into liking or disliking, right? So known as the wholesome, unwholesome, or neutral, and towards, again, good or a bad, or just indifference. So this proliferation, or the reaction to that feeling, or the reaction to that feeling after we have recognized, that is the one that generates towards the emotion. And this changes too, right? So the emotion is basically our reaction to the feelings. And the more we hold on to that feelings, the emotion becomes greater and bigger and stronger. So the practice of a meditation is to understand that feeling and identification. So in that moment, rather than having any commentaries, rather than having any stories on that, we simply recognize that and let it be. And comes the consciousness. Here, consciousness again alone is not the mind, and it's not the substance too. It arises on the basis of the combination of so many other things. Eye comes to contact with the visible object. Once it comes to contact with the visible object, that creates the friction, and we identify, and then that moment the consciousness arises. So it's simply awareness, one form of awareness, but that is also conditioned arised. So that's why this part of understanding is very different. And the dukkha, or the suffering that we are having, is not knowing these 5 things. But we have a unified concept that this is me, and we hold on to that concept that this is belongs to me, right? And this is me, and I making, my making begins. And as a result of that, in order to understand the true sense of what is known as the dukkha, or the suffering that we are experiencing, is to understand this whole spectrum of this concept. The very moment when we understood this, and that is known as the Satchayana, this is the first knowledge. Okay, Satchayana, the first knowledge, which needs to be understood, realized. That's not parinyaya or parinya, means understanding of that true reality as they are. Once we have understood that, it's called the Kichayana, that we have to do it to understand. Okay, understanding the function of this, how this works. And then last is, it has been understood properly, right? The very moment when we understood these conditionality properly, then that very moment we lose our grasping, our attachment, the concept of belonging to me and mine, concept of belonging to so-called this is me and never ending. And that's holding on to perception of this is me, or the personality view that I am exists forever, or I am the one, some form of like that, is the so known as the perception, the distorted view, or called a Sakkaya Ditthi, or personality view. And as long as we are having this personality view of me exists forever, or I am, my making, I making is still there, then we will still have this we have this desire, this passion, and craving continues. And with this, too much craving and desire brings the disappointments and a dissatisfaction and a sad and a sorrow. And with this again, the life comes back to the cycle of a birth and a death again and again. So this is what, in a nutshell, the concept of the dukkha according to the Buddha in the Four Noble Truths. So I end here for tonight, and we'll continue tomorrow on other topics. In a few minutes' time, we will have evening chanting and guided meditation. You are most welcome to join with us for chanting and guided meditation.